It's important for me to sort of in honor of my grandfather, because that's how I got kind of started doing all this, was being inspired by him. He dug a well one time and it had some clay, and he was probably telling me about bousillage, but he would use French terms and English terms, and I didn't get what he was talking about. So I took a sack of clay and never really did anything with it, but until the movie Violin there, the Cajuns, when I started doing that. That's how my art form just kind of evolved. My name is Dale Peretti, and I do the art of bousillage, which is also historical restoration, but also have turned it into an art form. And as far as I know, I'm the only one that does that. Bousillage, of course, the French were used to this method. In France, it was used with straw. In Nova Scotia, where the Acadians were, it was used with marsh grass, which is what the Mi'kmaq Indians used of the area. But in Louisiana, the Indians here used the wattle and daub form with the bousillage, the clay and moss, just raw clay right off the tree there, and mixed in a pit. But the clay was applied to that structure and then protected with palmetto leaves, cypress bark, or woven mats. The French noticed that it was very cool during the summer and warm in the winter, absorbs heat. So that's one of the reasons they just sort of modified the European architecture to fit the new materials here. And that's what we have with the bousillage wall. I'm not educated other than being close to my friends and getting a lot of information from them. But I saw her do paper mache chimney forms. And I just finished doing a chimney for the movie Bois, the Cajun, 1850s time period. And I thought, well, I've just done a giant chimney, why don't I scale it down? So a lot of my first sculptures were chimney figures out of doing different shapes and different kinds of clay. I'm the only one that I know of. I'd like for other people to try it. Every once in a while, you know, I show somebody, and I recently showed some people from Nevada, gave them a little piece to make a little bowl, you know, something simple. I used to do kid programs and show kids how to make it, and I also incorporate the historical aspects, but I give them something simple to do, and hope that it'll evolve either into art or architecture and carry it on and evolve it. Most of the stuff I do is something that you can really relate to in a very primitive manner, which always leads to home, which is everybody's. It's like food or home, those things that everybody can relate to. And it's a simple thing that everybody can enjoy. It doesn't have to be high art that, you know, it's only for the sophisticated, you know. Now this is a dried piece of what we call a torchon, which is the cured moss mixed with clay and formed into loaves. Looks kind of like a flat French bread, basically. This is what I do, a lot of little kids programs I do. I find these little cypress sticks, and so, although I hadn't cut them the right length, this is basically how the first generation Acadian houses would have been built, using these little forked sticks here.
As long as I can remember, I've had a life that's full of art and music. Going back generations, I have music in my family. I have music on both sides of my family, and so I was just raised with music since a very young age. I, grew up not only playing music, but just very handy with my hands, like to work on things and build things, and decided to pursue violin making as sort of like a coming together of my interests in music, in craft, Yeah, my name is Anya Burgess, and I own a violin shop in downtown Lafayette where we sell, restore, rent. Here is Cajun music, Creole music, Acadian music. That's what people play here, and they've been doing that for generations. And in the music, you can also hear other influences. In Cajun music, obviously, there's a strong Acadian influence, but you also hear a little bit of Irish music in Cajun music, and sometimes some old-time Appalachian influences as well. So I've always loved making things with my hands, and making a violin is no simple task. It's a very, very involved and detailed process. You have to be okay with having a very slow progression of work and measuring things to the 10th of the millimeter at every step. That's who I am. I guess you could call me a perfectionist. Very important to get things as accurate as possible at every step so that you end up with a finished instrument that looks like a violin. So violins take quite a while to build because everything is done by hand. Very few parts of the process are done with machines. It's all hand tools that are, sharpened at every step. To build a violin, it probably takes close to 300 hours. So, that's a lot of discipline to sit at the workbench and see it through beginning to end. Stradivari worked in Italy, in Cremona, Italy, in the late 1600s and early 1700s. He was trained by another very famous violin maker in the Amati shop. Stradivari is known for bringing the design of the violin to a perfect condition, a perfect design, to where nowadays, if you're a violin maker, you're following his templates and his patterns. There's definitely some other very notable makers that from that general time period where people are following their patterns as well, but Stradivari is probably the most well-known violin maker. My making, actually, I follow Stradivari patterns. Historically, there have not been a lot of female violin makers, and actually I was the only girl in the violin making course that I was part of at the time, and this was about 25 years ago. But recently there's been a beautiful coming together of women luthiers from around the world. At this point, I've built many violins, so I'm familiar with the process enough to kind of see the end at the beginning. When I was first building violins, this was a very difficult thing because every step takes so long.
I want the audience to feel the Louisiana experience because we're filled with love and affection. I call it spice. So I want the audience to see the spice in my work. I'm Virgie Banks, and I'm a fine artist, multicultural, Creole, Cajun, Zydeco, and jazz. Around maybe 6 years old, I started exploring. My mother would always get me a lot of art supplies because that's what I gravitated to. And then later on in high school, I won some competitions, doing some art projects. And then one day, I met this young man by the name of Kendall Banks. He had this bare wall of, his apartment, bare walls. So I said, "Can I paint you some paintings?" And he was like, "You paint?" He didn't have a clue that I can do that type of talent. And when he realized I had that type of talent, he said, "You need to go on to college and get a degree in fine arts." And I was like, "Really? You think? You think I'm that good?" So nonetheless, he married me and he sent me on my way to fine art school. That gave me confidence to want to go on and pursue the arts. When someone purchased my art, it kind of signified that I should be an artist. I wanted more. I wanted people to feel what I feel in the arts. So that's what inspired me to keep going. My number one objective is to draw their attention with the colors. And then they're in awe with the imagery. So of course I'm touching upon Louisiana. As an artist, I need to hear that they love it. So that's what I feed off of, so I can give back more. When I create, that's where I'm at. In a zone, who would love this piece more than me? Because I love this piece. And then it goes on to putting it in a gallery or on a website, and I get people asking me, how can I get this? How can I own this? I'd like to introduce you to Little Red Tricycle Acadiana Autumn, and it's because of the beautiful mute colors that I chose to express, and of course the fleur-de-lis that represents Louisiana. The journey of Little Red Tricycle, she embraces everything about life, and whenever she goes on her journey, she may encounter the fleur-de-lis, or let's say the magnolia, things of Louisiana. And whenever I paint about her, she comes to life in several different colors.
Approached the guy at the printing shop and offered to sweep in exchange for him giving me the scrap to cut off of the prints. Got to be compulsive about it. Mama couldn't really afford to do it. And after a while, he started giving me $3.50 a week to come after school and sweep and dust. My name is Dennis Paul Williams, and I'm a visual artist. Mama said I didn't like really toys and that kind of stuff. He found that I just took a liking to crayons and drawing. I was just happy with that. I didn't like toys at all. I come from a family of 10, and Dad died when I was 10 years old. Twice leaves a void in your life, and so it was just something, it's just a part of me. It came to me. It seems like it was just an innate language that I was just trying to get out of me. Couldn't articulate it, but there was something about lines and space and colors. I could see that there was some kind of relationship with what I was supposed to do in life early on when it came to that. I never really strayed from that. You know, it's nothing that I had to look. Body physically live here, but I live where my ideas are. That's where I take residence in. It's the ideas. My mother particularly, she, even with a 6th grade education, no matter what, she always nurtured that kind of thing. Even when I was in school, as a kid, when Dad died, I kind of had odds and end jobs. I worked at several places that had paper. You know, I was always shortage. I had a shortage of paper. Discovered a printing shop on Main Street. Approached the guy at the printing shop and offered to sweep in exchange for him giving me the scrap to cut off of the prints. Got to be compulsive about it. Mama couldn't really afford to do it. And after a while, he started giving me $3.50 a week to come after school and sweep and dust. And so I kind of grew to understand a different world and how to kind of navigate. And so my creative energy of survival skill kind of affected my artistic skill, because I realized that it was all connected, so I had to kind of learn how to deal with it. And especially that kind of art that I was kind of seeing in my being. And even as a Black artist, we have to kind of, even to Black people, we're not all alike. We have different tastes, we have different experience. So sometimes we even stereotype ourselves because of not seeing what we think we should be seeing a Black person doing, or a person of color. So, but being a person of color has always been one of the things, the difficult challenges in my life, even dealing with people of color, because my audience, basically, you have to develop an audience that can kind of relate to your sincerity, right? Because the work has to speak for you when you're not there. And that's the whole idea. I think that if you're sincere about what you're doing, honestly, I think you create the right cause and effect in your life. I've experienced that in my life. You really don't need a sign. What you really need is a sincere approach to what you're doing. And people can relate to that you're genuine. Make sure that anytime I put my name on it, it's sincere, honest, and that it can speak to myself, it can speak to the world, no matter how big it is, no matter how small it is.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Vermilionville, un village historique et un musée en vivre à Lafayette, Louisiane.
We are at the Maison du Culture. This house was built in approximately 1840. It's built in the Acadian style, although it has a lot of Caribbean influence in it. And this house tells the story of the three cultures which laid the foundation for what is now Louisiana culture. When the Europeans arrived in this area, the land was inhabited by a tribe called the Attakapo. The Attakapo tribe was decimated by European diseases. In this area, there were not very many Attakapo left by the year 1765. Louisiana was predominantly French-speaking until the Civil War. After the Civil War, French began to decline, although it was still widely spoken in this area. Probably 80 to 90% of the population spoke Cajun French or Creole French. In World War I, during World War I, the government decided they wanted to eradicate all languages other than English throughout the United States. Here, they prohibited teaching children in languages other than English. As a result, children were punished for speaking French in school. They were beaten, humiliated, and sometimes expelled. That program rendered Louisiana's French population almost ashamed of their heritage and of their language. Efforts are being made today to bring that language back, restore it, and keep it alive. This room tells the story of the African culture in Louisiana. Unfortunately, slavery is part of our history. The African people were a very important influence in the state, is of African origin. Louisiana cooking is very similar to what you find in the Caribbean. Your Haitian, your culture in Saint Martinique and Guadeloupe, and a lot of the dishes even bear the same name. Our gumbo pot consists of a lot of different ingredients. The Native Americans introduced sassafras or filet, as well as bay leaves and other spices native to the southeast part of the United States to the French. The slaves brought with them okra, called gumbo in their language, where the word comes from. The French added roux. The sausage we have is more Spanish and German. Other ingredients were added as time went on.
Trinquez les verres à la main, en espérant les jours. Trinquez, trinquez les verres à la main, en espérant les jours. Toutes les chansons qui les hommes chanté méritent une coupe à boire. Toutes les chansons qui les hommes chanté méritent une coupe à boire. Trinquez, trinquez les verres à la main, en espérant les jours. Trinquez, trinquez les verres à la main, en espérant les jours. Toutes les chansons que les femmes ont chantées méritent une coupe à boire. Toutes les chansons que les femmes ont chantées méritent une coupe à boire. Trinquez, trinquez les verres à la main, en espérant les jours. Trinquez, trinquez les verres à la main, en espérant les jours.